Hi, thank you for popping in to see what's going on. It's been almost a week since I posted my final chapter of my book called Freewill. And if anyone has never checked out my channel before this, please check it out. My entire book is read chapter by chapter here, and so you can get from beginning to end. And since I finished reading that, I've had some thoughts go through my mind in the last week about certain stories that I kind of didn't get around to in my book for whatever reason. And I thought it would be fun to kind of revisit some of the stories of growing up in the JW world. The one I wanted to write about today was baptism, because I never covered that in my book, and particularly how when you're raised by Jehovah's Witness parents, from before you're born, it's part of their world, and so you're so immersed in it, and what kind of exceptional pressure and guilt trip comes to you as a very young child to make your dedication to the Jehovah's Witness truth. And accepting that, and then making that dedication and getting baptized, and how it's pretty much kind of being pushed on you as soon as you can possibly understand that. And for me, it came a little later than it did for a lot of people. So I'm gonna read a little chapter about how that was. So I hope you enjoy this little addendum to Free Will. And I'd love it if you guys put in the comments anything about your baptism, that we would enjoy hearing. How old you were, if you felt pressured or obligated to get baptized, if it was a beautiful, meaningful experience for you, or if it was just something you did out of obligation, or any humorous stories. There's a little bit of humor to my baptism story, and I really wish I had the pictures to go with the story, but you'll have to use your imagination, I guess. So let's go in. I'm going to jump in and read this chapter, and we'll go from there. Growing up in a family of zealous Jehovah's Witnesses could be really fun at times. Like I've said before, the congregation that I was in from birth felt much like an extension of my family. But there were two things about my personality as a little kid that made the experience both good and bad. First, I was incredibly shy, as I said in my book. So answering at meetings and field service created a fair amount of anxiety in me. And second, I was a bit slow to learn in some ways, which I also mentioned in the book. And having a sister that was a year and a half older than me, that was extremely intelligent and advanced for her age, made it even more apparent how immature emotionally and intellectually that I was. Because our dad was an elder, we were frequently on the stage at the meeting in demonstration and other meeting parts. Once, when I was a little toddler sitting in the audience of the Theocratic Ministry School meeting, my mom must have been distracted by tending to one of my little brothers when my dad was invited up on the stage to do a demonstration of the presentation, or the sermon, that we would be doing that weekend. Unbeknownst to him, I quietly followed him up onto the stage. I shyly hid behind his legs while he gave his demonstration with the brother who played his householder. The longer I was up there, the more comfortable I got. My curiosity had me peeking around Dad's legs, first to the left, then to the right. I slowly started to recognize certain people in the audience and began waving to them. I must have really been enjoying seeing their friendly faces waving back at me. So suddenly I felt brave enough to step forward from behind Dad and was out freely waving to everybody at the edge of the stage. The audience roared with laughter, which suddenly made me really shy and embarrassed again. So I reached for the hem of my skirt and pulled my whole dress up over my head. The crowd roared even more. Dad's demonstration may not have gotten the attention it should have that night. Our congregation could be so fun. There was always a lot of laughter at our meetings. At one of my dad's public talks at Sunday meeting, he had arranged for our whole family to be on the Kingdom Hall stage. We had a very old, rickety, creaky Kingdom Hall with old wood floors and the creakiest wooden chairs that folded up with the loudest screech when you got in or out of them. Everything echoed really loudly in that place. So this part ended up being a very loud one. Anyway, Dad's talk must have been about talking about a peaceful, happy family home life. So we all got to demonstrate the opposite of that. The stage curtains opened up to our family in a living room scene. Us kids were supposed to misbehave. We had brought pots and pans and spoons for banging and making the loudest noise we could and creating lots of chaos. Mom and Dad were fighting and we kids were yelling and running around. When the scene tapered to an end, my sister, getting really into it, dramatically hit me for real. These were the fun, playful times at meetings at our congregation. Our congregation really seemed to be full of fun-loving people. Of course, this was all well before my dad had gotten disfellowshipped. After that, everything changed, as you know from the book. Anyway, going back to the fact that I was slow to learn in some ways, for a long time, I really didn't understand the concept of the Jehovah's Witness beliefs. I did understand that we were trying to please Jehovah so that we could get into the paradise and have everlasting life. I understood we didn't want to be destroyed at Armageddon and that we wanted to help other people get everlasting life in paradise too. But it took me a longer time than most to grasp the understanding of things like the original sin, the ransom sacrifice, the kingdom. Those concepts just did not sink in at all for me, even as indoctrinated as I was. My sister, on the other hand, had it all sewn up. She got it. She had gotten baptized at 11, although, as you also know from my book, she left within a year of that after my parents split up. Because I wasn't even talking about baptism by like 13, my mom arranged for me to study with a young pioneer sister from the hall. With that study, I finally put all the pieces together. Just that awareness finally clicking into place made me immediately want to get baptized. Of course, when you're born in, your entire existence is teaching you to get dedicated and baptized. So I had felt pressured and rushed into doing that as soon as possible, even before I really understood the church's tenets and beliefs. So once that understanding or clarity came to me, I urgently thought that I was ready. The declaration of my wish to be baptized was rewarded, and I was taken aback by how much it pleased everybody. My mom, my grandparents, the elders, the people at the hall. I remember meeting with the brothers to go over the baptism questions. It felt really stressful because this meeting took place at one of the elders' houses. It had been the same place where months earlier I had met with the same elders when my dad had gotten disfellowshipped. It's really fuzzy why I had to meet with the elders at that time, but I guess they were explaining to my sister and I the seriousness of our dad's transgressions or other types of reason like that. But the venue made me nauseous because of such a bad memory there. Anyway, I passed the questions with flying colors after rigorous study beforehand, of course. The next circuit assembly would be my chance to get baptized. It would be at the Woodland Hills Assembly Hall. It was a circular building with a stage that could spin, but for some reason rarely did. And we kids always wanted it to spin, so it seemed like it never happened. So it was November 4th, 1977. I stood with my fellow cohorts after the baptismal talk and answered the 2 questions, which, by the way, I have recently found out have changed. So why are those of us that were dedicated under old, outdated questions still held to our obligation? I call bullshit on that. But anyway, kind of obvious. Anyway, me and my fellow candidates marched out of the assembly auditorium to applause of the audience to change into our swimwear. I was one of the last ones to get a stall and go in and change. As I emerged from the bathroom stall in my 2-piece bikini, gasps echoed loudly in the ladies' room. Oh, sorry, lost my notes. Pause. There we go. I could see every other sister was wearing a large, oversized t-shirt and shorts. Now, this would have been 1977. I think maybe before that, people hadn't made such a big fuss about the being modestly covered for baptism. I really would have thought my mom would have insisted that I wear a shirt over my swimsuit if it was that big of a deal. Or maybe the whole thing just slipped her mind. You guys will have to comment to me about what you remember about what it was like when you got baptized. Was everybody in full clothing getting baptized in shirts and shorts and stuff? Or were they wearing bathing suits? I remembered bathing suits, but maybe I just don't remember clearly. Anyway, so the sisters in the bathroom that day were scrambling to find me anything to wear over my bathing suit. They kept saying, "You can't go out there like that." Well, nobody found anything and I had nothing. I couldn't put my assembly outfit on over my bathing suit. So I sauntered outside to the small pool where the crowd gathered to watch. There were quite a few baptismal candidates ahead of me, so it felt like I was standing there for eternity, especially when I heard a quiet cat call come from the crowd behind me. Probably from another teenager. Anyway, after getting baptized that day, I was rewarded again with all the handshakes and congratulations and hugs. And I received a brand new Bible and a pair of pierced gold teardrop earrings with pearls from my mom. That was really special to me. We all went out to dinner that night. We went to a restaurant called Northwoods Inn. And if you're from Southern California, you know what that is. Northwoods Inn is a steakhouse type restaurant that looks like a log cabin with fake snow on the roof. Inside, they serve peanuts for snacks and appetizers, and the entire restaurant floor was covered in the peanut shells. We could just throw them on the ground. We love that. There were also many antiquated paintings all over the walls of scantily clad or partially nude ladies. But this was the place that we went after any big JW event, whether it was a funeral, after a funeral, or after a wedding, or a shower, anything. After, it was always the after party, the place to go when somebody got baptized or anything like that. Anyway, I had finally checked the box. I got baptized. I finally felt that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and I was pleasing others, mostly my mom. So anyway, I thought that would just be a fun subject matter to talk about with people. If you were, either born in or had a childhood, an early childhood that was in the organization, sound off in the comments and tell me how old you were when you got baptized. If you have any stories to share with us about what it was like for you to, did you feel pressured? Did you feel excited and really good about that decision? For me, it was not at all emotional. I didn't feel necessarily, spiritually attached to that decision and action. I felt more an obligation. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what's next. And it's kind of required or you're going to die. And the people in your family that are witnesses, I mean, most of them are really pushing you in that regard. And then you have the social thing where if everybody in your hall that happens to be around your age has already gotten baptized and you haven't, you start thinking something's wrong with you. And I just think that, this is just one instance of being raised in a religion like this, where guilt is such a constant in a child's life, through your adolescence and everything. You're filled with guilt. You're repressing things about natural development because of their rules. You're doing things that maybe you wouldn't choose to do because you're feeling an obligation and you want so much to maybe please your parents or please somebody at the hall or whatever. And how then even after you leave, because I was in it for so many decades, it was amazing to me how there was literally like layers of guilt to let go of over, it's been 12 years since I've been in it. And I've just been amazed at times how I find myself still shaking off little remnants of that guilt that was so laid into us for so long. So I thought it would be a good discussion to have, and I really look forward to reading comments from you guys about your baptismal experience. Anybody else wear a bikini? I really wish I had the pictures of that so you guys could believe me. I think I said it wasn't a string bikini. It was just, a bikini. So... but it went down in the history books. People were talking about it for a while. So anyway, it was so good to talk to you guys again. And the next time I feel moved to write another little addendum chapter, I will see you back here. Take care.